A notorious bank robber came to the city, and huge sums of money started to disappear from the vaults of the city's banks. No one could stop the criminal. They were never caught on CCTV cameras. Bank security officers never saw anything suspicious. There was only one strange thing about the thief. They always left behind a slip of paper with a tooth, spider, and a lizard drawn on it. Was it some code? But several months later, the police managed to arrest 3 suspects. They were Mr. Pantafent, Ms. Toothspard, and Mr. Superhero. Yep, some people do have bizarre last names. Who is the infamous bank robber? It was Miss Toothspard. The pictures she kept leaving behind were her hint. Tooth, spider, lizard. Brandon's wife Brenda went to visit her friend who lived in another town. They agreed she would call her husband when she arrived there. But instead of calling, she sent him a message. Hey, everything is fine. I'll just go downstairs to buy coffee. I'll be brief now. More details in the next message. Love ya. Once Brandon read this message, he jumped into his sports car and rushed to the town where his wife had gone. Why? Brenda isn't simply terrible at spelling. The typing errors make up the word save. Someone stole extremely important documents from Mr. Larson's office. 1 week later, the police arrested the criminal. It was a woman called Emily. She was being questioned for 3 days straight, but still refused to tell the police where the folder with the documents was. Then, several officers visited her apartment. At first sight, nothing was out of the ordinary. But after careful inspection, they figured out where the documents were. Can you do the same? One floor tile seemed to be loose. Once the officers lifted it, they found the papers. When Victoria went to college, she started to live in a dormitory, sharing a room with another girl, Maria. Victoria's neighbor was very popular with guys. She had 3 admirers, Walter, Nathan, and Jeremy. But one day, Maria disappeared. Victoria was sure one of the guys was behind this. Maria loved drawing, and there were several pictures on her table. Victoria looked at them attentively and realized who she should ask about her friend. Jeremy must know something. Look at the pictures. A jacket, yo-yo, mouse, earth, rocket, and elephant. The first letters of these objects make up his name. Look at this poor guy. He seems to be stuck in the middle of a natural disaster. Which one should he choose to survive? A tornado, flood, or lightning strike? The only place where the guy might find some kind of shelter is a high hill behind his back. High ground during a lightning storm or a tornado is a terrible idea, which means the man will only be able to survive a flood. Carl was a rich man who had 2 adult sons, Ethan and Christian. They all lived in one house. One day, Carl saw that his most expensive ancient Chinese vase was missing. The only people who were at home the night before were his sons. The man didn't want to involve the police. That's why he decided to talk to each of his sons himself. He saw Ethan driving through the gates. He was back from his daily visit to the bakery. The guy said that the night before, he'd been practicing the guitar in his room. He didn't notice anything suspicious. Christian was near the swimming pool. He told his father, "Now I understand. Yesterday I saw Ethan. He was putting some box in the back seat of his car. It must have been the vase." But Carl immediately realized it was Christian who had taken the vase. How did he figure it out? Ethan drives a sports car. It only has 2 seats. He couldn't have put the box in the back seat. It means Christian is lying. Jack and Deborah lived in a pretty small house near a forest. One day, the man went for a walk and never came back. Deborah called the police, and they went to search for her husband. Soon they spotted him. He was lying on the ground, trapped under a large tree that had fallen on top of him. Suddenly, a stranger appeared from behind the trees. He exclaimed, "How terrible! But it's not a surprise, really. The wind was so strong this morning, it must have knocked down this tree." The police officers immediately arrested the man. Why? The tree doesn't look broken by the wind. It looks as if someone cut it down. It was an unusually snowy winter. Detective Adam Davis was walking home from his office when he saw a young woman. She was carrying 2 large bags. For some reason, the girl seemed suspicious to the detective. He came up to her, showed her his badge, and asked what she had in her bags. "Oh, I'm going on vacation. That's just some stuff I'll need there." And still, Adam called for backup and arrested her. Why? Look at the woman's footprints. She got out of the house through the window. A bizarre way to leave your own home. She must have broken into the house, and there are stolen things in her bags. A man was walking along a railroad track. Suddenly, he saw a train speeding toward him. But instead of getting away from the track immediately, the man started to run in the direction of the approaching train. When the train was very close, he finally jumped off the track. Why did he do this? When the man saw the train, he was on the bridge. He couldn't leave the track right away, and the nearer end of the bridge was closer to the oncoming train. Ryan worked as a cook's assistant in Mr. Miller's house. One day, the man's competitors promised Ryan to pay him a huge sum of money if he poisoned the rich businessman. Ryan waited until the cook took a day off. Then he made dinner for the whole family, Mr. Miller, his wife, and their 2 children. Each family member ordered a different dish. Ryan only poisoned the one the businessman was going to eat. You can save Mr. Miller if you guess which dish is his. Keep in mind that Donna, the man's wife, is a vegan. The businessman himself loves meat. Kira, the daughter, is on a diet, and Amy can't eat sugar. So, which dish did Ryan make for Mr. Miller? It's spaghetti with meat sauce. Congrats, you saved Mr. Miller. 4 girls were driving to a party. At some point, the one who was behind the wheel failed to control the car and crashed into a tree. Luckily, everyone in the car was wearing seatbelts, so no one was hurt. But when the police arrived, none of the girls wanted to admit she was the one who was driving. The officers examined the car and looked around, and in no time, they knew which girl was lying. Can you figure it out? Almost all the girls are wearing really high heels. It must be extremely uncomfortable and unsafe to drive wearing such shoes. And only the girl in the black dress has sneakers on. She was the driver. A math teacher told his students about Roman numerals. After that, he asked them to draw one line and turn 9 into 6. His only condition was that the students couldn't lift their pens from the paper until the line was finished. Mark was the first one to complete this task. How did he do it? He drew the letter S in front of IX and got 6. Jeffrey was brought up by his grandfather, who was a billionaire. Unfortunately, the guy didn't seem to know the value of money. The elderly man worried about his grandson. He told Jeffrey he would stop giving him money until the guy got married. It meant that Jeffrey had to forget about his fun life. No more fast cars, parties, and clubs. Luckily, It didn't take the guy long to find a girlfriend. They met on a dating site. Amanda seemed to be everything Jeffrey had been dreaming about. Smart, pretty, funny, and rich. The guy was about to propose to her when something happened. One day, Amanda sent him a photo. In this photo, she was standing next to a luxurious car. The message she sent afterward read, "How do you like my new toy?" That's when Jeffrey realized Amanda had been lying to him all this time. How did he figure it out? The girl is wearing a badge in the photo. She must be working at a car dealership, not buying extravagant cars. There was a blackout in the city, but a bus driver still noticed a dog on the road. He managed to stop in time not to hit the animal. How come? This near miss happened during the day. They have no feathers, no scales, no body, and no bones. And yet, they have fingers and thumbs of their own. What are they? A pair of gloves.
A super wealthy businessman, Mr. Carl Jenkins, has been taken and left locked up all alone in a dark room. His phone's almost run out of charge, so he can only write one message. He knows that someone might spy on his phone, so he decided to write a message with a code to a high school friend, John Smith, who runs a detective agency. He remembered that in high school, they would cipher messages to each other, so he used the same technique. The message was this. Can you guess what it means? Back in high school, they would shift one letter to the right each time they needed to write a secret code. To decipher it, you need to go one letter to the left. Their alphabet looks like this. The message is, "It was Eric." Having read the message, John knew immediately who his friend was talking about. Eric is the financial director of Carl's company. He had seen him once at a party a couple of years ago, so he knew what he looked like. John decided to investigate this case himself and help his friend out. He was sure there was something secret in Carl's mansion. Somehow he thought he knew that Eric would have the key to the mansion. The receptionist, Kelly, said he would always have lunch with different business partners at 2 p.m. sharp in his favorite cafe. When the detective drove up to the cafe, he saw Eric, the man with a beard, discussing business with someone. Either of them had a briefcase next to them, and the briefcases looked similar to each other. John was waiting for Eric and the second guy to leave the cafe. They went to the car, got in, and left both briefcases on the back seat. The detective followed them. They left the car in a parking lot, and luckily, they were careless enough to leave the car open. Which briefcase should the detective grab? The one that looks brand new. While they were walking to the car, the detective spotted a few scratches on the second man's briefcase. Both briefcases were locked with a cipher. Not to make the whole thing suspicious, the detective decided not to take it and cracked the code right in the car. Can you help him open the briefcase? The code is 000. The briefcase is brand new, and Eric probably didn't have time to set a code on it yet. Plus, Eric's the one who leaves the car open and unattended in a parking lot, so no wonder he uses a default code for his briefcase. Now that the detective has the key, he heads to the mansion. The front door isn't a problem with the key in hand. The study is upstairs. He's been there before, so he remembers the stairs leading up have a secret. If you step on the wrong stair, you'll instantly fall to the basement and won't be able to escape from it yourself. What step should John mind? It's the one with the slit in the middle. When you step on it, it opens and you get into a dark room with bats and spiders. Yikes! Alright, John is finally at the study door, and Carl would always use buttons to open it. You've got only one try. There are 3 buttons, yellow, green, and blue. Which one should the detective choose if he knows that Carl is a big fan of painting? A combination of blue and yellow gives green, so the door opens. Green light for our detective. He finally reaches the safe with top-secret documents that could help him find out the truth. Obviously, just like any other safe, it's locked with a code. It also has a warning. You can enter the code only once. If you hit the wrong code, the safe locks up forever. He's looking around for a hint, and voila! John is right. On the desk, he sees a note. It says, "Secret code," and has a combination of 3 digits, 3, something, and 1. The digit in the middle can't be seen since there's an ink stain right on it. Can you crack the code with one attempt only? The code is 371. The detective thought the code was used frequently, so the button must have been a bit worn out. He was right. Since he knew the beginning and the end, he only needed to find one more worn button. Alright, now he's got the top-secret documents he needed for his investigation. He looks through all the papers and finally finds something that looks like the document he actually needed. To take it as a hard proof, he needs to find one which is not fake. There are 4 copies. They look almost the same, but only one is real. Can you guess which one? It's the one in the upper left corner. It has a stamp, a signature, and it says agreement. The one next to it looks the same, but it has a spelling mistake. It says agreement. Other copies lack either a stamp or a signature. So the detective takes a closer look at this agreement and sees something about a painting bought in an auction. He suddenly understands that his friend Carl was taken so that someone could sneak into his mansion and grab that super expensive painting. He's looking at the wall with all the paintings Carl collected and realizes that no painting is missing. There are as many nails in the wall as there are paintings. Still, there's something strange about one of them. Can you spot what's wrong here? Even though all the paintings are present, there's one that lacks a frame. According to the agreement, the painting has been recently bought, and an art dealer helped Carl pick it. The expert was an honest man, and he helped Carl make sure all the other paintings in his collection were real. This time, the painting turned out to be nothing but a copy. Why did the expert suggest that Carl buy it? Although the painting cost nothing, its frame was a beautiful and expensive piece of art. The one who grabbed it definitely knew that. Now it's all clear. John has to find both Carl and the precious frame. He goes outside, trying to deduce where the person who took Carl went. Carl is looking at all the tracks on the ground. He needs to follow one of them to understand where to look for Carl. Where should he go? He's got to follow the tracks going to the left. There are 3 sets of tracks here. The first belonged to John's car. The second set belongs to a 2-wheel vehicle, and since the tracks are really thin, they were left by a bike. It seems impossible to take someone somewhere on a bike, so these must belong to a mail carrier who comes every day to bring the letters. The last set of tracks definitely belongs to a large car, so John should follow it. He's lucky and there are no turns, so he's just going straight. Half an hour later, he sees something like a castle. He drives up to it and he sees 3 moats in front of him. Here's the first one, a row full of metal stakes. How can John jump over it safely? There's a small hot air balloon nearby. John has to untie it and light the lamp to take off. Since the next moat is on fire, John thinks it's unsafe to fly over it because the air balloon doesn't fly high enough and the lamp doesn't have enough oil to go on for long. Still, he managed to cross the moat with fire easily. How did he do it? He took the sand from the air balloon's ballast and sprinkled it on the fire, extinguishing it. The last moat was filled with scalding hot lava. It took John some time to figure out how to cross it, but he managed to do it safely. How? There were a lot of stones around him. The lava torrent wasn't deep at all, so throwing stones at it, he made a tiny path to hop on. The castle was rather small inside, so the hardest thing was to actually get into it. When he entered the hall, John saw 3 doors. Above the doors, there was a sign. It said, "One of the doors leads to a labyrinth no one ever escaped. One of the doors is the exit. If you enter it, you'll have to cross all the 3 moats all over again. One of the doors has what you're looking for." When John looked at the doors, he knew immediately where his friend was. Which door did he choose? The handles were made of shiny metal, which looks cool but gathers all the fingerprints. The only door with fingerprints is the one on the left. John opens the door and sees his friend. Carl rushes out of that dark room, and while heading to the exit, they spot a few frames. Which one is Carl's? The rectangular one. The painting was rectangular, and the 2 other frames are square. The 2 friends get out of the castle, get in the car, and head to the police department. There, an officer's waiting for them. They have 3 suspects who could have possibly taken the exquisite frame. Carl and John enter the room separately. Still, they choose the same person. Who did they choose? The man on the right. Carl chooses him because it's the art expert. John chooses him because he saw him with Carl having lunch. Wow, seems like this expert's not going to work with Carl ever again. So Mia wanted to go to the party her classmate was throwing, but her father didn't let her. Mia thought for a while and remembered her grandparents had just moved to their new 1-story country house. She asked her dad if she could visit them at the weekend, and the man agreed. But Mia went to the party instead. When she got back home after the weekend, her father asked her if she had had a good time. Mia replied she helped in the garden a little and spent the rest of the day upstairs. Her father immediately knew she was lying. How? Mia said she'd been upstairs, but her grandparents' house is a 1-story cottage. Liar, liar, pants on fire. 11 plus 3 equals 2. 10 plus 5 equals 3. Now how is that possible? It makes sense when we talk about time. 11 o'clock plus 3 hours is 2 o'clock. 10 o'clock plus 5 hours is 3 o'clock. One king wants to find out which of his 3 sons is the smartest. He takes 3 chests and puts his crown in one of them. On each chest there's a statement, but only one of these statements is true. The crown is in this chest. The crown isn't in this chest. The crown isn't in chest number 1. Each person can only open one chest. The son who figures out where the crown is will be the next king. But can you solve this riddle? If the first statement is true, the other two must be false. It's not so because the second statement turns out to be correct. So this assumption's wrong. If the second statement is true, the crown isn't in the first chest. It's not in the second chest either. Then it must be in the third one. But this makes the third statement correct, although it shouldn't be. If the third statement is true, the first one's wrong and there's no crown in the first chest. The second statement's also wrong. Now, there are no contradictions. The crown's in the second chest. Here's a sequence of letters. Which letter should you add? The missing letter is F. If you put it at the end, you'll get E. James and Taylor were best friends in elementary school. Unfortunately, when the children were 10, James and his parents moved to another state. The friends lost contact. 15 years later, James and Taylor accidentally bumped into each other in a cafe. It was their first meeting since school. They recognized each other and started talking. It turned out Taylor was already married and had a daughter. "Wow," said James. "Does she look like her dad?" "Oh no," Taylor said. "The girl's a mini version of her mother." "Ah, so she must be a blonde with blue eyes." This time, James was right. How did he understand that? Taylor's a girl. She's the mother, and James only needed to describe her. You're outside a room with 3 switches in the off position. Your task is to find out which one turns on the light in the room. You can flip as many switches as you want, but you can walk into the room and check if the light's on only once. How can you understand which switch controls the light bulb? Turn on 2 random switches and wait for a couple of minutes. Then, turn one of them off and walk into the room. If the light's on, the switch connected to the bulb is the one you left in the on position. If the room's dark, touch the light bulb. If it's hot, then the controlling switch is the one you just turned off. If the light bulb is cold, the correct switch is the only one you haven't touched. Esme got lost in the forest. She was wandering around for the whole day. Finally, at dusk, she saw a spooky house. A witch lived there. The girl had nowhere else to go, so she entered the house and asked for help. The witch said if Esme solved her riddle, she'd be free to leave in the morning. Here's how the riddle went. 17J, 70M, 96A, 162J, 256S, 354, what's the missing letter? The 17th day of the year is in January. The 70th day of the year is in March. The 96th is in April. The 162nd in June. And the day 256 is in September. Day 354 is in December. The missing letter is D. A young girl got her first job as a maid in a rich lady's house. Once, when she was tidying up, she noticed a very expensive collection of books. She made a break to look through one of them and then returned it to the shelf. The girl kept working until the very evening. No one else was at home. After finishing her work, the maid returned to the shelf and discovered that the 6th book was missing. But she clearly remembered that the book had been there before. It was the one she had been looking through. When the lady returned, the girl confessed she'd lost the book. But the woman only laughed and said everything was fine. Nothing was missing. How come? The collection had 8 books. The 9th book was actually the 6th one. The girl accidentally put it upside down. Right before Christmas, the police got information that a famous thief named Alfonso had left Chile. He boarded the plane to Los Angeles. The only thing the detectives knew about the man was that he had a beard. At the airport, the police officers met a group of people. They had just arrived from different countries. The detectives noticed 4 men with beards and interrogated them. The first one said he'd come from London. The second told the police he arrived from Chile, but his name was Cristiano. The third man answered he'd come from Sweden, and the fourth one was also from London. The police didn't even need to check their plane tickets to spot the criminal. How did they know? It's Christmas time, but the man who supposedly came from Sweden is dressed too lightly for that climate. He must have arrived from Chile, where it's summer. A road accident happened on a foggy day. 2 drivers were taken to a hospital. Each of them had a concussion. Interestingly, their cars didn't even have a scratch. What happened? The drivers were going in opposite directions. It was foggy, so they stuck their heads out of the window. They didn't notice each other and hit their heads. Ow! Samantha was born on January 27th. For the first 20 years of her life, she celebrated her birthday in the winter. But starting with her 21st birthday, she began celebrating it in the summer. Why? She moved to the southern hemisphere, where it's summer in January. 2 sisters, Ava and Nicole, are very honest girls. They always tell the truth, except for one day a year. On their birthdays, they always lie. Today is September 17th, and you ask them when their birthdays are. Ava says hers was yesterday, and Nicole says her birthday is tomorrow. The next day, you ask them again, and they say the exact same thing. Can you guess when their birthdays are? They can't have 2 birthdays. It means that one day one of them lied, and the next day it was the other's turn. Since Ava mentioned yesterday, her birthday must come first. So Ava's birthday is on September 17th, and Nicole's on September 18th. Bethany, Tommy, Eliza, and James spent the whole day at home alone. Their mother didn't let them enter her room. When she came back in the evening, she wanted to eat her chocolate bar, but it was gone. She went downstairs and asked the kids who had eaten her treat. Bethany said she'd been doing her algebra homework the whole day and hadn't eaten anything at all. Tommy replied he'd been playing football outside. Eliza said she didn't even know where their mom kept chocolate. And James simply claimed it hadn't been him. Their mom knew immediately who had taken her chocolate. How did she figure it out? It was Eliza. The mother never mentioned what kind of treat was missing, but Eliza somehow knew it was chocolate. The father of identical quadruplets, Aurora, Belle, Chloe, and Dana, called the teacher and asked her to let Dana leave earlier. She had a doctor's appointment. The teacher couldn't tell the girls apart. To have some fun, the quadruplets refused to confess who was who, but gave their teacher a hint. Chloe is somewhere in the middle. Dana is to the left of Belle and to the right of Aurora. Aurora is right next to Dana. How can the teacher identify the girls? Chloe is somewhere in the middle, and since Dana has someone on both sides of her, she must be in the middle too. If Chloe was the second, Dana would be the third. Then Dana would be to the left of Belle, and Belle would be the fourth. Then Aurora must be the first. But it doesn't work. because Aurora and Dana have to be next to each other. If we switch Chloe and Dana, Dana will be right next to Aurora, but still to the left of Belle. So the right order is Aurora, Dana, Chloe, and Belle. Dana's the second girl. You suddenly wake up trapped in a dark room. Your only source of light is a candle. There are 2 doors in front of you. Behind one of them, there's a tunnel that will lead you outside to freedom. Behind the other, just a cold brick wall. You have a key that will open only one of the doors, and you can try it just once. So how do you know which door to try? Hold the candle up to each keyhole. The flame will move near the door that leads outside. You escape to freedom, but you need to send some important documents to your friend Beth. You can't mail them in a regular package because the precious papers will get stolen. So you put them in a box and lock it. But Beth doesn't have the key to this lock. How can you send the papers if you can't send the key to the lock separately? First, send the lock box to Beth. She'll attach her own lock and send the box back to you. Then remove your own lock and send the package again. Beth can then remove her lock and finally open the package. Bad news. You get a call one morning from Beth. She says the crucial documents were stolen from her office. They'd been on the desk the evening before, but are nowhere to be found this morning. You immediately go there to question the employees. In no time, you gather 3 suspects. Sean said he had been at the movies last night. Michael had taken his girlfriend to an amusement park. And Christina was at a prestigious art gallery. Who's lying? Sean. His movie ticket isn't torn. Having been caught red-handed, Sean makes a break for it. He hops in his car and drives away. Law enforcement are on the lookout. Sean sees a police car right ahead of him and starts driving toward it. Why would he do that? He was on a bridge. He needed to go toward the patrol car to get to the other side and make his escape. No such luck for poor Sean. He gets caught and locked up. But he starts hearing rumors of an inmate planning to break out. The guards have 2 suspects. First, a quiet bookworm who spends most of his days with his nose buried in sci-fi novels. The second, a big burly tattooed guy who's always working out. Who should Sean become friends with if he wants to get out of here? The bookworm. Look closer, and you'll see his bookmark is actually a file. On Friday afternoon, the owner of that same prestigious art gallery discovered that 4 of the most famous artists' self-portraits had been stolen during an exhibition. The police show up to do an investigation, and now they have 3 suspects. Sarah, the artist, said she disappeared into one of the studios to paint. John, the security guard, explained he was just waiting outside and had no idea the portraits were gone. Daniel, the caterer, stated he was at a nearby store picking up extra napkins when the robbery took place. So, who's the thief? It's the security guard. He couldn't have known the stolen paintings were portraits if he was standing outside. As fate would have it, there was another incident that night. Michael, who never really liked what passed for art in modern times, rushed into the gallery and caused millions of dollars worth of damage to several paintings. Yet the gallery's owner thanked him for his actions. How come? Michael is a firefighter. The water from his hose damaged several masterpieces, but he still managed to extinguish the fire and save many more works. They awarded Michael a big check in gratitude. He heads home just in time to get his 5 kids all packed up for a camping trip that weekend. Mike and his wife are really looking forward to having the weekend for themselves to relax. But when they woke up on Saturday, they discovered the check was missing from their safe. Once the officers showed up, they interviewed the 3 people who were in the house that morning. The chef said he was in the kitchen getting school lunches packed. The cleaner said he finished cleaning quickly that day and left early. The butler had just gotten back after taking the kids to camp 3 hours away. Who's lying? It's the chef. It's Saturday, so there's no school, and the kids have gone camping. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, a scientist is working on something bizarre. He invites Kevin and Claire as blind test subjects for his new serum invention. He gives them each a glass of ice-cold lemonade. Kevin drinks his fast, but Claire apprehensively waits to see the side effects on him first. After 2 hours, nothing happens, so she drinks her glass. 2 minutes later, her skin turns green. If both the drinks had the serum, why was only Claire affected? The serum was in the ice. Since Kevin drank his fast, none of it got in the lemonade. Claire runs out of the lab in horror. She gets in her car and speeds off. As she's driving down a long, empty road, one of her tires pops off. Good thing she has a spare in the trunk. But here's the problem. She now has no lug nuts to put the spare on with. So what should Claire do? Unscrew one lug nut from each of the other 3 wheels and use them to attach the spare tire. It'll be enough to get to the nearest garage safely. As Claire is putting on her spare tire, the scientist catches up to her. He hands her 4 pills and tells her it's a complex cure to the green face serum. 2 of the pills are an antidote, and the other 2 are a catalyst that activates it. Claire must take 1 of each type together. If she takes 2 of the same, her face will stay green forever. Just as the scientist is handing her the pills, he trips and they get all mixed up. They look identical. What should Claire do? Grind the tablets up, mix all the powder together, and divide it in 2 parts. Each half will have the same amount of catalyst and antidote. It worked, and just in time. Whew! The next day, Claire has a big calculus exam. But funny enough, all the students in the class refuse to take it. Professor Miller can expel only 1 student for skipping the test. All of them know each other's names. If a student knows they'll be expelled, they agree to take the test. How can the professor make all the students take it? She should tell them she'll expel the student whose name comes first alphabetically. Then this person won't skip the test. The next person on the list won't skip either, and so on until the end of the list. The next day, class isn't any easier. Professor Miller grabs her cup of coffee, takes a sip, goes to set it down, and what's this? It's stuck to her hand. Somebody put glue on the cup, and she's got 3 suspects. Look carefully to find out which student is playing tricks on the professor. Sure, the first student has an awfully guilt-ridden look on his face, and the second student's smile looks just like pride for a job well done. But look closer at the third student's pocket. Yep, it's the tip of a glue bottle. Professor Miller is so annoyed by her class's shenanigans, she decides to change her career. Wow. She opens a shoe factory. She's so successful that she builds a second one in another city. But despite her success, the problems don't end. Her employees keep secretly taking shoes from the plant. What can she do to resolve the issue? Have one of her factories start making only left shoes and the other only right ones. One of those shoe swipers is driving a semi-truck full of shoes to sell for a profit. He comes to a tunnel, and there's a major problem. His truck is just an inch too tall. But he can still drive through the tunnel. How? Let some of the air out of the tires. It'll lower the truck just enough. When the shoe swiper gets through the tunnel, he comes to a fork in the road. One goes to the town, the other to never-ending wilderness. There are guides standing at each. The catch? One always tells the truth, the other always lies. The driver doesn't know who's who, and he's only allowed one question. What should he ask to find out which road goes to town? Ask either one of the guides which road the other would say is the right way. Then he must choose the opposite. The truth teller knows the other will lie, so they'll point the driver toward the road to nowhere. If he asks the liar, they'll know the other guard would honestly point him toward the town, so they'll again recommend the road to nowhere. The shoe thief takes the road to town, but he has another puzzle to answer before he's allowed to enter. The guard at the gate asks him one simple question. What's the logic in the order of the following words? Fun, blue, bee, more, and dive. Every word rhymes with its number on the list. Fun 1, blue 2, bee 3, and so on. The shoe swiper finally settles down in this new town. Too bad for him, he can only use a payphone to make calls. One day, the phone breaks. He informs the phone company, but they do nothing. He tries again the next day. Same result. The third time, he finally gets them to come out and fix the phone. So, what did he say? He claimed that people were making calls without paying.